computer. All right. So, Bob, the way we'll run the session, we'll have each one, introduce themselves, and then we'll hand over the stage to you for you to give a presentation about truly human leadership. You don't need any introduction within the group. You're pretty well known. They've read a lot about you, heard a lot about you. And then we'll go and have sort of a Socratic discussion with each one. They have lots of questions. So we'll go around the room, have everybody share questions. And towards the last 20 minutes, we will step back for review and reflection. With each one will share how they're feeling, the insights that made a difference to them, and the actions they'll take that will support them to create breakthrough results. But before we begin, I want to thank
and Jyoti, and I kind of mentioned that, to me, given the thoughtfulness of your group from the questions, it'd be interesting at the very end if they could tell me what they have taken away that will impact their leadership stewardship of their lives. In other words, because each one of us are uniquely different, we each at a uniquely different place in our life, and we'll each receive this message within those unique situational and personality issues. So I think what we learn from is what you all hear and how it impacts you, as opposed to the message just going that way. So it would be a great way to end, to capture your moments of impact.
Absolutely. And we call that review and reflection. So we'll spend about 20 minutes reflecting on, what they learned from you, the wisdom they carried away, and the actions they'll take in their lives. But before we begin, Bob, I want to thank you. Thank you for just being there during the darkest phase of my life, and holding the light for me, because if you weren't there, I wouldn't even be here, inviting you to our session. So deeply grateful for your belief, for your trust, and for being the light in my life when, there was all darkness all around me. So thank you for that.
You're a joy to have in my life. And so reaching out to help you was very easy with the joy. And as from where I sit, your eyes say more than your mouth does.
Brilliant. Thank you. So let's go around the room and, check in with introducing yourself and also sharing how you're feeling as we get started. So let's start with you, Mufi.
Thank you, Jyoti. Bob, a pleasure to meet you. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for taking the time out for us today. My name is Mufazzal. I head mergers and acquisitions at Deutsche Bank. And I'm feeling very excited to interact and learn from you. I'll tag Ashish.
Thanks, Mufi. Thank you, Bob, for being here. I'm Ashish. I take care of a telecom business for South Asia for Airtel, and I'm based out of Sri Lanka. And I'm really excited again to meet you. And I've attended one session with you about a year back, and it has really made an impact to me. So some follow-up questions definitely coming up on the way after implementing what you have taught us. And I tagged Mithun.
We're all a work in progress.
Yeah. And I tagged Mithun.
Whom did you tag, Ashish?
Mithun.
Thank you, Ashish. Hi, Bob. Yeah, this is the second session with you, and it's always an interesting session being with you. We feel blessed for that. Thanks to Jyoti also. My name is Mithun, and I head the business for a German MNC called Push Vacuum, and I'm based out of Delhi. And I tag my buddy Harsh.
Thanks, Bob, for the session today. I am a serial entrepreneur based out of India. I run a market intelligence firm. I've been a great believer in the concepts detailed in Everybody Matters. So I'm really excited about this session. I tag Wehmiller.
Good.
Wehmiller, you're on mute.
Thank you. Good morning, Bob, Emily. Delighted to be here. I had Jyoti's flagship brand, Mums at Work, and so excited to be taking this forward. the first line that jumped out of the book, Bob, was you measure people by the lives you've touched. And that's what I grew up with. My father told me. So I'm so happy to be here and looking forward to learning more about that. And
I'm honored to be alongside your father. I'm honored to be alongside your father.
Yes. And I tag Snehal.
Thanks, Vimla. Hi, Bob. I'm really happy and excited to have this session with you. I'm Snehal, and I had service at Eternia in Aditya Birla Group. And after reading the book, there are like a lot of insights and a lot of questions also. So looking forward to this session. I'll tag Bala.
Hi, Bob. My name is Bala. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm an operating MD at Matrix Partners, which is a leading venture capital firm in the country. We invest in startups and lucky to be in business with some fantastic founders. I feel very calm and very happy to be here. Reading your book reminded me of a book I read in my childhood, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. The wisdom flowed through, and I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Thank you.
Bala, you need to tag.
I tag Ankit.
Good evening, Bob. This is Ankit Agarwal. I'm heading a company called Sterlite Technologies, which is essentially focused on providing internet connectivity to the unconnected and to everyone around the world. Super excited to hear you today. Also happy that you got internet connectivity in a farm in Colorado, and really look forward to listening to you. Just wanted to share that this is the first thing as I became a CEO about 6-7 months ago, was to think of what kind of leadership style, and really struggled with this human leadership versus my predecessor. So really looking forward to the discussion today.
Good, thank you.
I'll tag Aditi.
Thanks, Ankit. And hi, Bob. This is again my second interaction with you, and I'm super excited and looking forward to this this conversation. So I'm Aditi Malhotra. I work as an account lead with IT consulting organization called Chapman Consulting, and I'm based out of India, Gurgaon. And I'm feeling really happy. So thanks and welcome to the group. And I tag Prakash.
Hi, Bob. I'm Bikash Agarwal, and I head the finance in a startup called Eternia in Aditya Birla Group. And I'm excited to hear you. And I think human leadership is something which is one of the most important element of a leader to grow. So, and I look forward to understand from you this complex thing, and more importantly, in a environment where you have to constantly make trade-offs. How do you develop this critical skill in a person? So I'll tag anybody.
Yeah, Anju's left.
Hi, I'll tag Anju.
Thank you, Vikas. Yeah, good evening, Bob. Good morning, everybody. I'm quite happy to be here, and it's the second time for me that this session with Bob, and I still remember the last time, the wonderful learnings we had. So looking forward. I'm Anju. I work as a coach with Moms at Work, which is one of the Jyoti's program, and I also teach yoga. And I'm always working with people, so very excited to hear more from you, Bob. And I think everybody's done. So back to you, Jyoti.
Brilliant. Over to you, Bob. Bob, before you begin, I'm going to spotlight you. Yes, I think there is the light. Okay. You are looking a little dark. Can't see you fully. Maybe because there's light behind you.
I think I can turn on.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Let me do that.
I think if there's light in front of you, then it'll shine on you. Then, you look nice and bright.
Okay, I would dark to the light. Hopefully this is better. So let me, with Emily's assistance, I want to open up my PowerPoint, knowing that some of you have already heard this. Let me go up here to share it. Let me make sure it opens up.
Yeah, it
So
will.
can everybody see it? Okay.
It's not.
So,
yeah, it's not,
Not yet.
Not yet.
Bob, did you hit the share screen green button down at the bottom of your screen in the middle?
Maybe Emily, you can share if you have the presentation.
I do have the presentation. If you need me to share.
I gotta be able to. I've got to be able to advance it. So let me get out of this and share screen. Share screen. And here it is.
Yes.
There we go.
Brilliant.
And then Bob, yeah, just that button right up there. Right there. Yep. Perfect.
Okay, and I am going to. So knowing that some of you have heard this, I'm gonna cover this briefly because I want to get into a dialogue. But remember, I really call this, truly human leadership, the courage and skills to care. As I say to all the audiences I speak to around the world, you can't ask people to care. You have to teach them how to care. You can't ask people to speak a foreign language. You have to teach them how to do it. So, that's one of the points. Again, it is not about simply caring. It is about embracing the skills to care and then deploying this. So remember the situation I told you now. Remember, one of the things I want to mention to all of you is that I speak in all parts of society around the world. And honestly, at Harvard, McKinsey, Stanford, Simon Sinek, Raj Sisodia, Srikumar Rao, all the people who have heard my message evolve over the last 15 years, nobody has ever debated what I am going to tell you, okay? Nobody debates there's a moon. That doesn't mean they know how to get there, okay? So again, these statistics are mainly US statistics, but I found them in my journey around the world true everywhere, and not just in business, in nonprofits, in healthcare, in government, and the military. So remember, most people in effect feel they work for an organization that does not care about them, okay? And in America, it's 88%. When I talk to CEOs and organizations who are worried about the cost of healthcare climbing dramatically, I say, you are the problem. 74% of all illnesses are chronic. The biggest cause of chronic illness is stress, and the biggest cause of stress is work. Raj Sisodia, my co-author, who's the really founder of Conscious Capitalism, co-founder, he informed me that there's a 20% increase in heart attacks on Monday mornings when people have to go back to work, okay? In America, we have TGIF. Thank God it's Friday, okay? I imagine a day when we have TGIM. Thank goodness it's Monday. Get a chance to get away from the kids, the spouse, the chores, and be with a group of people where I feel valued and I can contribute my gifts. Jeffrey Pfeiffer at Stanford recently wrote a book where he quoted us, and Jeffrey Pfeiffer stated that his book is called Dying for a Paycheck, and he means not anxious to get one. He estimates in America, 120,000 people die a year of work-related stress. That's just the ones that die. Gallup informed us that the person you report to at work is more important than your primary care physician. Never in my education was I made aware that the way I would run my company would affect people's health, their marriage, their relationship, in their life. I thought it was a job that I paid people for, and they ought to be thankful that I was paying them. We learned recently that in America, again, 65% of all people would give up a salary increase if they could just fire their boss. Okay, and then 58% of all people would trust a stranger more than the way they would trust their boss. Okay, so what I believe the world is suffering from, every part of the world I'm a part of, is leadership malpractice, just like medical malpractice. We put people in leadership positions with technical backgrounds and ask them to become leaders with no preparation for them to embrace that profound impact they're going to make on the people they now have the privilege of leading. What it has created, according to Tom Friedman, is a poverty of dignity in this world. Okay. A guy named Bill Urey, a world peace negotiator at Harvard, called me about 15 months ago at a time of great concern, Afghanistan and political dialogue and critical race theory, lots of issues. And he said, I'm just generally worried. And we talked for about an hour, and I said, the problem, Bill, is that we don't know how to listen. Not listen to debate, not listen to judge, but listen to understand. The next day, he sends me an article from Thomas Friedman, a very famous writer for the New York Times. And Tom Friedman said, we don't have a poverty of money, we have a poverty of dignity. And when people don't feel respected, there's an element of humiliation. When they feel that way, you will see anger and unrest like you've never seen before. And he quotes Nelson Mandela, and he goes on to say, as what we need is deep listening, which is our message. The most critical leadership skill that is not taught is to listen to understand, and listen to understand the individual that you're dealing with so you can flex your leadership style to that individual. So the issue we face in the world today is greater than world hunger, is the lack of dignity, because we have a model in the world based upon money, economic success. It doesn't matter how you get it, as long as you get it legally, and then you're considered successful. So when I look back on my education, I have a very traditional education. I got an undergraduate degree in accounting, an MBA from Michigan. I got a job at Price Waterhouse, and I was taught management classes, got a management degree, and got a job in management. Okay. Name anybody you can manage. Name anybody you know that wants to be managed. I was never taught how to be a leader. And in hindsight, this is looking back, I realized I saw people as functions. That's an engineer, that's a receptionist, that's an accountant, that's a hourly worker. I saw people as functions for our success. And success was clearly money, power, and position. As I said, I was never taught how to inspire people, because I was taught to manage people. I was never taught to care for people. I was a nice guy, but I never had the skills of caring. So one of the things we've learned recently in America, we have what's called the Great Resignation. People are quitting jobs at record levels after the COVID pandemic. And we find through these statistics that, again, people not feeling cared for, 3.2 times more likely to be happy at work when you feel cared for. So the statistics are overwhelming that when you care for people, they will give you gifts that they didn't even know they had, which is what we hope our teachers do, what we hope our leaders do, inspire us to be the best person we can. So as you know, Barry-Wehmiller, when I began the second phase of my life, after we went public in England and spun off 2/3 of the company. So in 1988, I started with a $20 million business and about $28 million in the bank, but old technology serving an old industry with customer concentration. And I sat down in 1988, and from the mistakes and experiences I've had in the 80s, I designed a business model, okay? My goal was to go from 20 million to 100 million by acquiring companies with diversity of technology, market serve, and customers to avoid the problems I had having concentration of customers, concentration of technology, and concentration of market. I thought that business model would get me to 100 million, and I could articulate how to do so. That business model that got us to 3 billion, okay? 120 acquired companies around the world, 12,000 team members from China to India, to Serbia, to Italy, to Germany. So, and it's going to be a little complicated, but we have a share price. We're a privately held company, but there's a methodology to emulate public valuation, which we measure our company's progress on. And for 25 years, our share price has gone up over 15% a year compounded. Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company has gone up 9% in that time. So the reason I say that is only to say to you that this unique journey that you're learning about, both business-wise and culture, is not a nonprofit organization, okay? It is a value-creating organization, human value and economic value in harmony. And again, we as we sit here today, we see a path to 4 to 5 billion in the company we're performing without compromise our integrity on the people whose lives are entrusted to us. So one of the key things I always teach is balance of markets. We have almost no concentration. Again, over 120 acquisitions. We're in corrugating, we're in labeling, we're in packaging. Now, balanced, but within things I understand, which is capital equipment. Okay, that's so all of these are capital equipment. I originally started in packaging, but my mind was opened up to the opportunities in corrugating, where we're making capital equipment. So again, our business model is around balance of markets. So something should happen in one of our markets, competitive, you know, I could tell you story after story, something happened, our people are going to be okay. There's an old expression, you need to get the right people on the bus. That's not quite right. You need to build a safe bus, which is your business model. And then you need leaders who are the drivers, who know where they're going and how to get there safely. And then anybody that gets on the bus is going to be fine. So I want to emphasize, it is more than just your technology, okay? It is about a business model that when you invite people to join your firm, they could look at you, can I raise a family? Can I buy a home? Can I count on you to provide me with an income as long as I provide you with my services? Because that would be very important to me. So again, here's the chart between Berkshire Hathaway and Barry-Wehmiller. So the Walton family, who's our largest known Walmart, the richest family in America, is my largest investor. They have 12%. Greg Penner, who's the chairman, told me not long ago that the Walton family considers their Barry-Wehmiller investment the one they compare all others to, not just because of our financial performance, because of the inspiration that's been to them from the human side. So again, this is just to validate, oh, he's a private company, he doesn't have to create value, he's a private company, he doesn't have to do up to the challenges. We have outperformed Berkshire Hathaway, which is a public company. So this is a key point for all of you, and I want to emphasize this. The Barry-Wehmiller case, which was written by Jan Rifkin at Harvard about 6 years ago, has become, we were told by Harvard recently, a Harvard bestseller. And 70 universities from Japan to India now use this case study in studying leadership and cultural development. And I was invited to Harvard when it was first being taught to a group like you, global executives from around the world, average age 48, 80% outside the United States. So executives came in for a special program, and our case was used, and Jan invited me to sit in as these executives discussed the case. At the end of a really vibrant discussion for about over an hour, Jan Rifkin, the professor, said, is Barry-Wehmiller successful because of its strategy or its culture? Now, personally, I have never given that 1 second of thought. But I sat there and I listened to them debate it for about 10 more minutes and then they voted. 75% of the people voted that we were successful because of our culture. Jan looked over at me. I was sitting on the side of the auditorium at Harvard, and he said, Bob, do you want to come up and comment? I had never given it 1 ounce of thought. And what I said when I got up in front of this group of 160 global executives was, I understand why you think it's our culture that drives our success. But honestly, it's our business model. The business model I designed in 1988 after the challenges in the late 70s and 80s has proven to be a robust business model. So I say it's a little bit like Ferrari building the ultimate high performance engine. The mechanical design of that engine is phenomenal, but unless you put a high octane fuel in that engine will not perform to its potential. So I want you to view our business strategy as the engine and our culture as the fuel that activates that engine. You can't put premium fuel in a poorly designed engine and race a Ferrari because you have a good culture. You may optimize that engine's performance, but that engine will never perform to that level of a Ferrari. So the important point I want to make to you, you can't be any better than your business model. And your primary responsibility is to make sure you know where you are, where you're going, why you want to go there. And when you get there, why will you have taken your people to a better place? Okay, your stakeholders, not just your shareholders, your stakeholders. That is your primary responsibility as a leader, to look at those people in your span of care and say, together we can do good things. Now let's go together. Okay, that is whether you're the Prime Minister of England or the President of the United States or the President of your company, the head of your department. Your job in leadership is to show people a way forward they believe in, they feel inspired to help create with you. Your job is to inspire people, not to manage, boss, and supervise people, because all you will do is destroy the very culture we're trying to create. So how did I go from what I call traditional management in the first half of my career to what I call truly human leadership? I actually called it people-centric leadership, but Simon Sinek said, no, Bob, this is truly human leadership. This is the way we were intended to lead others in our journey, in our professional lives. And it's around people, purpose, and performance. It starts with our primary responsibility is the people in our care. Okay, around a purpose that inspires them, a vision, a purpose that inspires them to share their gifts with you fully towards a journey that creates value. And then you have to create value. If you are not creating value, and I don't like to say profitable, I like to say creating value. If you're not creating value in alignment with the expectations of your investors, you cannot be good to your people, okay? So there's that important balance to make sure that you have a vision that you can inspire your team to create that will align with the expectations where you raised your capital, in alignment with the expectations and you invited people. So it's about people, purpose, and performance. Not 2 out of 3, but all 3. And again, those of you here last year, my first revelation was in 1987. I bought a company in South Carolina. I flew down there to be the first day. It was a period of time in America where people bet a lot on offices on basketball games. And I watched people having fun betting on basketball games. And I said to myself, in hindsight, why can't business be fun? Why do we call it work? Why do people leave their jobs and go play soccer or basketball or fish or any sport where they express their gifts fully? How can we bring fun into the work? So I created some games spontaneously with no motivation other than that inspiration, watching people bet on basketball games where people could every week know how they're doing, have fun competing as team members, as individuals. And we saw a dramatic impact on performance, and we saw a dramatic impact on culture where people felt having fun, joy, working together better as teams. So the first transformation to me is why can't business be fun? Why do we call it work? The second, Cynthia and I are Episcopalians. We were at our Episcopal church in St. Louis. Ed Salmon, the rector of our church, was my inspiration. At the end of one of the church service one day, I looked over to Cynthia and I said, Cynthia, Ed has only got us for 1 hour a week. Each one of you have people in your care for at least 40 hours a week. We are 40 times more powerful to impact people's lives than our faith, because we have people in our care for 40 hours a week. And the stewardship of those lives that are entrusted to us is your primary responsibility. Not just being nice, but making sure that you have a safe bus, people know where they're going, and the leaders know where they're going, and you hopefully will achieve the same thing we did. So that was my second transformation. Business could be a powerful force for good in the world if we simply knew how to care for the people we had the privilege of leading. Finally, the one that most people can relate to, because of many of us have children and marriages, and is the day I realized that the people that work for me are not engineers, accountants, hourly workers, production workers, marketing team members. They were somebody's precious child that I experienced when I was at a wedding, when I saw everybody, ooh, and how precious this young man and young lady were at a wedding, and how much the parents wanted those people, those young children they brought into this world to be who they're intended to be. And I realized that our organization had a chance to take these young men and women that have been placed in our care and give them a chance to be who they're intended to be and go home each night feeling valued for who they are. So that transformation, and what I describe it as today is my lens through which I saw people reversed completely. As I said to you, before that day, before that wedding, I saw people as a function for my and my organization's purpose. I need a receptionist. I need an engineer. I need an IT director. Okay, and I call them by their function. Okay, I may get to know them by their name, but I saw them as their role in the organizational purpose. That day at the wedding, my lens completely turned around, and I saw people as my purpose. Okay, I didn't see people as a function anymore. I saw them as somebody's precious child who's been placed in my care for 40 hours a week. And the way I would treat that precious person in my care would profoundly impact their life, their health, their marriage, their sense of happiness. So I would say to you, in the 15 years I've been giving the speech around the world, that is the one point that people remember the most. It's a simple idea. When you look at the people you lead, not as a function for your organization's achievements, but you look at them as your purpose to make sure that those people are part of an organization that cares about them and they have a chance to be who they're intended to be. And you send them home each night knowing that who they are and what they do matters. You can profoundly impact the world in which we all live, and we can start healing the brokenness we're feeling. So those are the three revelations. So what have I learned about leadership I want to leave with you? Leadership is the stewardship of the lives entrusted you. It is not a job, okay? It is not a promotion. It is a profound sense of responsibility, okay? And really those people in your care, from my 15-year journey now, they simply want to know that they matter. Not just the senior executives with the particular talent that allows them to rise that, but when you walk around the facility or your offices, do you introduce people? Do you acknowledge, them, or do you talk about your business? Remember, I was interviewed by professors at Washington University a few years ago for an hour and a half. At the end of an hour and a half interview, they said to me, Bob, you're the first CEO we've ever talked to that you never talked about your product. And I didn't even know that. And I said, you know what? I've been talking about our product for the last hour and a half. It is our people. I will not go to my grave proud of the big capital equipment we build or the profits we made. I will go to my grave proud of the lives we've touched, proud of the people that have built those machines, designed those machines, run our organization, and the stories of how we have touched them. So that was profound for me. And leaders Your responsibility as leaders is to look at those people in your span of care and give them a grounded sense of hope for the future, that they can count on your leadership, whether you're Prime Minister of India, mayor of your city, head of your company. We want to be in an environment where we look at our leaders as people who care about us and give us a future. That is your responsibility. Again, we've learned a great deal. We can create economic value and human value and harmony. From what I said to you in the beginning, it only makes sense when people feel cared for. They will share gifts with you they didn't even know they had. And that is what has happened in our company. You are releasing human potential when you care. Now, we don't care for our 12,000 team members to get more out of them. We care because they're somebody's precious child. Okay, so your purpose is just as important as your action. But and remember, as I just said to you, the key is you got to have a good business model. You can't, if you take your family in a car that is unsafe, you risk your family members. If you invite people into a company that is not safe, you risk the people you invite into that car. And it takes courage and skills to care. And the greatest of all skills is listening to understand and validate, not listening to debate or argue. Finally, again, how we lead has a profound impact on the people that you have a privilege of leading. You will impact their health, you will impact their marriage, you will impact their life. And let me give you a story that just happened this last week, okay? A gentleman who worked for us wanted to confidentially share a story that he's given me permission to share, but I will leave enough out that nobody will figure out who it is. A gentleman told me that when he joined Barry-Wehmiller a few years ago, his marriage was in a high risk of divorce. And they had their young child in working with a child psychologist because of some behavior issues. And they were told that this 4-year-old child was a high risk for eventual suicide, okay, at 4 years old. This gentleman in our environment started taking our classes at our university, started becoming one of the people that were teaching it. And he told me today, from the day he joined us about 3 years ago to today, his marriage is healthier than it's ever been. It saved his marriage, and his 4-year-old son no longer exhibits the characteristics that psychologists saw that would lead to suicide, that could lead to suicide. That story says it all, okay? The way you lead the people you have the privilege of leading has a profound impact on marriages, on health, on parenting, and on the behavior in our communities. It is a profound responsibility, but you cannot ask somebody to do this. You've got to teach them how to do that. That was a powerful story to me. And again, Raj Sisodia, one of your colleagues, one of my closest friends now, said there's really no trade-off between caring and succeeding. They're really totally aligned. Caring for people. Now, if you have a big business model and you're nice, a bad business model and you're nice, you're still going to hurt people. Your responsibility is to look at the people in your care and say, I've got your back. We've got a good future. Let's do it. This quote from Simon Sinek is so powerful. He basically says, in the military, we honor those who give of themselves in service of others. And in business, we give bonuses to people who sacrifice others in service of themselves. I've heard this 1,000,000 times. We had to let people go. We weren't making our numbers. We had to cut our costs. And so people, even I heard Unilever the other day got a new director, an antagonist director. And within a short period of time, they laid off 5,000 people and the share price went up. Good job. So you get your share price up. What happened to 5,000 people who counted on the career Unilever? Well, they'll find another job. Simon Sinek, if he were here today, he would say to you, if we can teach military leaders that officers eat last, your primary responsibility is the men and women in your care, why can't we teach business leaders the same? Your primary responsibility is the men and women in your care. The answer is we can, we are, and we are doing that right now. So I think, as you think about all these pieces, recently the 200 top CEOs in America came together because of the political environment in America where they're talking about socialism, which concerned the leaders of the free enterprise system. And they came out with a statement that we need to think about more than just the shareholders, okay? Now, it's kind of sad they needed to say that because that should have been a given. But the problem is this well-articulated document by really fine gentlemen is nice, but the problem is they have no idea how to do it. Their boards don't know how to encourage it, and they're not paid to do that. They're paid to get the share price up. So I would say to you, everyone acknowledges we're broken, but nobody knows how to fix this broken model of economic focus. In that same vein, I would say to you that there was this gentleman who flew out to Aspen to have dinner with me. He'd heard me speak. And I said to him, I said, what are you really proud of? And he said, well, I'm proud of my $120 million gift to my college alma mater. But what I'm most proud of is my minority student athletic scholarship program. I said, great. How many minority students do you help each year? He said, 5 or 6. I said, that's great. I said, how many people work for your company in the world? And he said, 100,000. I said, so what you're telling me, you really care about those 4 or 5 minority students you help, and you don't care about the 100,000 people that walk into your company every day around the world, make it possible for you to write that check to charities? And this fine gentleman looked at me and said, I never thought about them. That is the state of the world we're in right now. We celebrate people who write checks to charity as great families, but nobody asks them how they got their money. The greatest act of charity is not the checks we write. The greatest act of charity is how we treat the people we have the privilege of leading. This is simply the manifesto of our book. Everybody wants to do better. Trust them. Leaders are everywhere. Find them. People achieve good things, big and small, every day. Celebrate them. Some people wish things were different. Listen to them. Everybody matters. Show them. That is really, the manifesto of our book. As you know, as we sit here today, about 10, 12 years ago, we created a university to teach leadership because our university teach management. So we knew we had to do this ourselves to create disciples. So it wasn't Bob's belief, it's our belief. We all believe this is the way. So to create disciples, we created a university. And the first thing we started teaching is listening, the greatest of all leadership skills, empathetic listening, then recognition and celebration, how to let people know they matter, and then culture of service, how to seize the opportunity to serve others. As a result, not with any outcome in mind other than to try and transform managers into leaders, people like Simon Sinek, Raj Sisodia, Bill Urey of Harvard, McKinsey started coming in and saying they'd never seen anything like what they experienced talking to our people. Amy Cuddy of Harvard said, I've never cried so much walking through your plant when people wanted to stop and tell me what it feels like to be part of an organization where I feel safe and cared for. So what I just shared to you is not theory. I'm trying to share with you what we're actually doing in manufacturing, in traditional businesses around the world. I could tell you story after story after story that would touch your heart profoundly. This is the greatest source of healing in the world, and it's in your hands. The people you have the privilege of leading would have the opportunity to be who they're intended to be if you had the gifts to invite them into your organization, give them a role aligned to their skills, and then created a sense of teamwork so that everybody worked together, had joy in working together, and returned home each night to whatever their family situation is, knowing that they matter. So they can deal with their personal situations with the strength of the 40 hours a week that you gave them where people feel cared for. So that's our message. Some of you have heard it for the second time. I hope it sank in even deeper in your heart because you had a year to think about it. I've looked at all your questions. I'm ready to answer any one of those because what I desperately need is people like you to become leaders who care so we can start healing the brokenness in the world. That it's not about Barry-Wehmiller or about Chapman. All of us can become these leaders. And this would heal the brokenness we're all feeling in the world right now. And again, when we wonder what's wrong with kids today, in America, I will tell you, look at where they came from. They came from families where people worked for companies. They didn't feel cared for. They came home drained and not able to be the most loving, caring spouse, parent, or citizen. And that story amplified it completely. So what I will bring this to a close and take on the next phase of this dialogue.
Thank you, Bob. That was, heart-touching as always. So what we'll do is go around the room and, have each one share how you're feeling as you listen to Bob and ask your question. And so, just to ensure that, we're moving fast, we'll have the brave hearts share their questions first. And so tag each other, and then we'll have Ashokas and Awakeners, and then we'll have Unicornians, Athenians, and Socratians. I think Socratians are not there today. So let's begin with Mufi. Mufi, share how you're feeling as you listen to Bob, and then ask your question, and then you can tag another brave heart after you.
Thank
And
you,
I will spotlight, yes, Bob along with you.
Thanks, Jyoti. Bob, thank you so much for that. Very, very inspiring. A lot of it goes straight to the heart of what I believe as a leader as well. So thank you very much. I think from a question perspective, being somebody who's leading a team doing M&A and deal making, having overseen over 100 plus acquisitions for your company, I'd be keen to understand what have been your key challenges and learnings, for successful M&As, and what advice would you have for deal makers?
Well, back in probably some years ago, I was asked by Washington University to talk about our acquisition model. This is probably after we'd done 20 or 30. And KPMG had written a study that 77% of all acquisitions fail to achieve the objectives of the initiators of that acquisition, 77%. And I got into, and I was looking at our own record. So one of the things you have to understand to answer that question in the background is when I began doing acquisitions in 1984, I was dead broke. And I mean dead broke. I mean dead broke. And so the natural question is, well, how do you do an acquisition if you don't have any money? Well, you do it with inspiration and perspiration, and honestly, you buy things nobody else wants, so they virtually finance you to buy the company. So my early acquisitions in 1985, 1986 timeframe, relatively small companies that we patched together, mainly in the UK, ended up being launched at a public offering. So I bought really kind of struggling small businesses, probably 3 or 4, put them together in this $35 million package with this electronics business we'd started in Florida. So it was and the market loved it. Okay. So that was a miracle. Okay. That was not brilliance on my part. That was a miracle. But I sat down in 1988 and then I looked for companies that I thought I could add value. And what I realized is in the 80s, I'd made some mistakes in the late 70s and 80s that created our financial crisis. And when I had this second chance now I had $28 million in the bank, a chance to start again. So I had 30% of a public company, a $20 million historic company that was still private. And I said, what did I learn? And I said, I learned I know how to fix businesses in the capital equipment business that are struggling. So I started looking for just the opposite of what you would look for as an M&A advisor. I looked for companies that had problems like I had that I had figured out how to fix. And in our industry, which I understood, so in the packaging industry, and there were dozens of them because it was dominated by a lot of family companies, second, third generation, not performing. And I was looking to build a model for this business model with as much of recurring revenue as I could, because the capital goods market is very much cyclical. And so I started doing acquisitions that had good aftermarket, secondary revenue after you installed it. So I began looking for companies that most people didn't want because they had leadership problems, financial problems, technical problems. And I went in and I captured the value of the secondary revenue after, and then I invested in the leadership team. And so I could look at the nature of the problem and I could say, I could fix it. It's kind of like a surgeon looking at your heart saying, I can fix that, I just need to do surgery. So from the mistakes I had to fix in the 80s, I focused on things I could do. And again, I was so sensitive to the financial challenge, I didn't want to make a mistake. So I brought intensity and passion and execution. And so 130 acquisitions later, our share price performance, where we sit today, clearly it was a very eclectic, unique acquisition strategy, because when people were paying high multiples for earnings, I didn't even know what EBITDA was, okay? Because I was looking at the nature of the company, whether I could run it better and what I could make it better. So I always knew I could make it better. So again, it would be hard for you to take this to your clients and advise them, because honestly, ours was a very eclectic journey. Now, obviously, we were the combination in for the first, since 88, for the first 15 years, we focused primarily in packaging, then in corrugating, and then converting lots of challenge companies. And today we have a vibrant company with organic growth because we happen to be positioned in some very unique markets, kind of eclectically. So what did I learn? I learned that I had the ability to see value where others didn't, okay? Which allowed me to buy things that have what some people would say a very fair price. And then I brought passion, intensity, and strategy to those, and I knew what I could do to make them better. So many people spend their time on buying profitable companies with good management, okay, and then bringing financial engineering to it, and then trying to flip it, through the private equity or the model. And people are not really the purpose; it's the return. And a lot of people are hurt through the M&A activity. Family companies sold to a corporate, and then they let people go. They consolidate the business. So M&A is an area where we are particularly good. We're very disciplined and we are very unique. So it'd be hard to apply this to your clients. But again, we don't buy companies that we don't think we can make better. Again, we're convinced, and we got to have more upside than downside. Otherwise, we wouldn't have that share price return. So it's a very eclectic model, but it has allowed us to access companies and really build a $3.5 billion global company. And we don't buy companies to sell them. We adopt companies because they're people. Okay, so we see organizations as people. So that's probably the most general. I could give you a million examples, but in general, we have a unique way of seeing value where others don't. And we buy for the long term, and we have a particular play pattern with the nature of the companies we buy that brings value. So obviously it works, or I wouldn't be sitting here, on top of this $3.5 billion company. And one of the things I'd mentioned to you is if Ford Motor Company builds a new truck, they would drive it in the worst terrain and the worst conditions and see how it would hold up. If you design a business model, America drive it into the 08, 09 downturn when General Electric collapsed, Bank of America collapsed, many companies collapsed. Our share price went up 11% that year. We let nobody go. So our business model has been tested in the worst economic environment I have ever seen. Again, in COVID, our share price went up 31%. So I would say to you, our business model is performing. It's unique. It kind of reflects my unique eclectic journey, but it has created this now organization being studied from around the world. And it defies conventional wisdom in many ways. But thanks for the question.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob. I'll tag my buddy Bob.
One of the last things I'd say is you work with your clients, Don't look at the numbers, look at the eyes of the people who are going to be a part of that organization saying, can you give these people a better future? Not just make the numbers work. Can you stand in front of the people after you acquire that and say, in our care, you have we care about you and we're going to help give you a better future. That would be a wonderful test of every M&A deal, because you're not buying numbers, you're buying people and lives.
Great. Thank you so much, Bob. I'll tag my buddy Bala.
Thanks, Mofi, and thank you, Bob. I think, Bob, your talk actually connected very deeply with me. I think the book speaks a lot to your heart, and I think today you were able to connect both the heart and the rational thought of strategy in business now to connects to culture. So thank you so much. My question is, I work in an industry, in tech and startups, which is in a very different place today, where talent actually has enormous choice, and talent scarcity and talent retention is actually a bigger challenge. So my question to you is, I'm sure you've advised clients or business leaders or other founders or friends in this industry, where I'm curious to understand, what does human-centered leadership really mean in an industry where job safety is not really the top of mind for anyone, where most people are looking at jobs as 2, 3, 4 year kind of stints before they eventually start their own company. And for a founder to build a long-term enduring company, it's incredibly hard when you're on this constant treadmill of finding new people. So any advice for how you think about company building in a very different industry context?
Well, so I described our company as mainly a capital goods company, right? But the business model I designed, which was heavily focused on buying companies that had recurring revenues, predictable recurring revenues, which is many spare parts, field service, upgrades. I also had this idea from working at Pricewaterhouse to create an engineering consulting company about 30 years ago, which is high tech, controls engineers, et cetera. That idea, the only organic thing we've done, we now have 1,500 heading to 3,000 engineers around the country in 40 offices. So we are hiring the very people you're talking about. And our chief people officer just gave a presentation on our board that we are winning the war on talent. So I would say to you that while some of our people, because of the caliber of people we have and the experience we give them, are getting attracted away at 30 and 40% hiring bonuses, we are hiring people faster than we're losing. So the presentation to our board was, we're winning the war on talent, and we're doing surveys. And the reason people are attracted to our company is our culture. Now, we didn't do that, okay, to attract them. We did it because we care about them. But our culture is giving us a significant strategic advantage in attracting talent. So yes, we're hiring really good people. They go out and work for the clients, just like I did at Pricewaterhouse. And some of my clients said, I'll pay you 40% more if you'll join us, because you know our company, we know you. But we have 3 people waiting for that same job, And so I would say to you, the description was, we're winning the war on talent because our culture is making a profound impact. And I'd also add, on the M&A side, founders, family members, companies are coming to us because of our culture, because they can't sell their company to anybody else they would trust more than us. So our culture is making a dramatic impact on the talent acquisition and the opportunity acquisition. And our customers see it as they experience being dealt with by us, because we say we don't get orders from our customers, we get their trust, and then our teams validate that trust. So we are changing the language of business around caring, because our cultures are people, our customers are people too. So I would say to you, in the high tech, we're kind of in the high tech industry too. Engineers are in huge demand right now. We have, I think, 400 software engineers, controls engineers, where we go out and work with Campbell's Soup and Heinz and Anheuser-Busch, where we put in controls engineers. So that's pretty high tech too. And we have hired in the last 6 months, 219 of them. And the pace continues to grow, because they want to work for a company that will care for them. They may be attracted away eventually, but the number of people lining up for their jobs is impressive. So yes, what this great resignation has done, we have never had more interest in the culture of our company than we have today, because all of a sudden companies saying, oh, we're losing people. Maybe we need to think about our culture. Well, we didn't think about our culture because we're losing people. We thought about our culture because we care. Okay, so I would say to you, in your high-tech industry, we're in the high-tech industry, in our consulting company, dealing with companies all over the country with bright, talented people. And you would be incredibly touched by what people say, what they heard about our company, and then they join us, and it's even better than they thought. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to keep them forever, because we give them great skills and they get attracted away. But then we have others. So we're actually elevating the talent every day, because the bigger we get, the more we're known, the more our culture is evident. So culture is a competitive advantage. It's not to keep people. It's because people deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. But the outcome of that is profound in terms of talent, retention, and sharing their gifts.
That's very wise. Thank you so much, Bob. I'll tag Gaurav.
You can tag Ankit. We're doing Bravehearts first, Rajan.
Oh, I apologize. I tag Ankit. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Bala. Bob, that was very, very helpful and something I could really resonate with. We also run manufacturing, and I've also done a few M&As, some successful, some not so. Just a few things, maybe a couple of questions. One is, at least my company and most companies I'm aware of run and look at performance evaluation based on KPIs. And, ultimately there will be people who don't perform. And logically, I would say, or at least standard business logic is if they're not performing for a couple of quarters or 3 quarters, then you put the effort to support them, and then you have to move them on. It's in their best interest probably, and in the company's interest. So just some thoughts on how do you look at, letting go of people. And then, you said something which I would love to do and spend disproportionate time on is to inspire. But what I end up doing is very often, since the numbers are not where I'd like them to be, you get pretty deep into trying to fix it yourself, rather than spending time to inspire and be my natural self of just loving and caring. And it sounds this or that, which I don't want it to be, but that's where it ends up being. So just so any inputs on that would be very helpful.
Well, the numbers are the result of a good business strategy, and then putting the right players on the team, and then having the opportunity to inspire people. I don't know how much of your time you spend inspiring people or creating a vision, but I don't have to micromanage our team. Let me tell you something, it's a lot harder to run a $100 million company than a $3 billion company. Okay, why? Because the smaller the company is, the less the talent you can have. And I tried to manage people to the numbers, okay? And, I was successful doing that, because we had a unique business strategy. But today, my goal is to inspire people towards a vision, and then let them contribute their gifts. If you have somebody, and Bill Urey at Harvard described it as courageous patient. If you have somebody, despite all your efforts to get them to align to the vision and to embrace your philosophy, it just doesn't seem to work. And you use all your skills to do that, then simply treat that person like you would like your son or daughter treated if they were in that position. That always catches people off guard, because they say, well, that would be different. I said, why would it be different? We have all this glamour around hiring people and great opportunities. And then when we let them go, we fire them, we lay them off. We have all these inhuman ways of describing issues, okay? Rather than sitting down and treating them like you would like your son or daughter treated if they didn't rise to the challenge of an organization they're in. So your standard of care, when you look at people, to make sure that you have given them every opportunity to be to play a role that fits their ability. You didn't put somebody in a role that was outside their capability, which is not their fault, okay? And B, should it be that you need to make a change because it's hurting the organization and it's hurting the other team members, then do it in a way of dignity and respect so that they can learn from that and go on to the next job and look back at you and say, thank you. It was hard for me to hear it, but the way you said it, I could hear it. I feel you care about me, and I'm going to go out and learn from that and be better. That's the kind of feedback we have seen. So again, A, making sure you've put the right people in the right role, that everybody knows where you're going. And then when you have issues of performance, which we have just like you, the question is, how do you deal with compassion and understanding, like you would like your son or daughter, mother, father, sister, or brother treated if they were in a role that turned out to be tougher than they could handle. And sometimes it's the leader's issue as opposed to the team members. Okay, I learned that years ago. There was a third baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals that was supposed to be really good, but he didn't seem to do that well. So we traded him to Atlanta, and he became an all-star player every year for Atlanta. Same guy, same industry, same position, different manager, okay? And so sometimes you just need to make a change, try another role. But again, sometimes we are not the best leaders. Sometimes we're not the best parents. Sometimes we're not the best spouse. So it's not always the other person. And again, don't ever say the word fire, terminate, you are having a dramatic impact on some human's life when you decide that it is not working, and treat them with compassion and understanding, like you would want your son or daughter treated, so they can go on from that experience and grow from it and be better in the future.
Thank you. I can tag Ashish.
Thanks, Ankit. Bob, we are going through a challenge. I'm in a country which is, as a country, we are going through a severe economic crisis. And within that economic crisis, most of the organizations here are going through their own challenges, companies moving from black to red. People are going through their personal challenges in terms of economic challenges that they face. Now, in this situation, how to balance between a company which has economic challenges and the people have economic challenges? Who comes, how do we take care of each other, people and the company? That's a conundrum that I'm facing currently, and any views you have on that?
We've faced that. I mean, we all in leadership have been through what you're experiencing. And the question is, how do you deal with it? And historically, what I learned in business school, well, you got to let people go. It's not easy, but you got to do the hard thing. You got to let people go. And if your business model has failed, okay, so even in the horrendous economy where everybody hurt in America, we didn't let people go because our company was financially strong. We had a business model that had recurring revenue. So even though our new equipment orders dropped by 30%, our aftermarket was strong, our field service was strong. So what we made a decision to do was, why would we take a few people and let them go for what we consider to be this economic challenge? What if we all took a month off without pay so our brothers and sisters at work could keep their jobs? And the reaction was unbelievably positive. Because when you decide, because of whatever challenge you face, to let people go, what you're saying to everybody else that stayed is, you may be next, okay? If we're willing to do it to Bill and Mary, maybe Jim and Sally are going to get it too. So I would say to you, you got to be careful. The unintended consequences of addressing this is you're showing your behavior, okay? So I'd say to you, the answer is, if your economic model is challenged in the current environment, the first thing you should not do is take it out on the people who put their trust in you, okay? You should see, can we get through this together? And if at the end of the day, you've explored every opportunity to make it better, which is what the Harvard case study is about, then if you've got to make some adjustments to the organization, How do you do it with compassion and understanding? Okay. So one of the things we did to avoid that is we kept our company really financially strong. We never did an acquisition that put us out on the limb where we found ourselves highly leveraged. Even, before 08, 09, when money was cheap and companies were growing, people urged me, Bob, you could lever up the company to 2.5, 3 times EBITDA. Some people were 5 and 6. And I said, nope, we are going to stay strong. And we did, and we even had an acquisition come along that was very meaningful. And I said to the seller, I will only give you 10 million in cash and 12 million in Barry-Wehmiller stock because I don't want to borrow any more than a certain amount of money. So just like you would personally, keeping your financial position solid so that you can get through some of the bumps in the road. But if your model fails, if your business model fails, it is not the fault of the people. It is the fault of the leadership team, okay? And so as you embrace that responsibility, how can you get through this together? And if you need to make some adjustments to survive, and there was a gentleman who worked for me, described it like a DC-3 Douglas aircraft flying towards the mountain and was losing altitude. And the pilot came on and said, we're not going to clear the mountains unless we lose some weight. And your priorities become really clear. If in fact, for the organization to survive, to save as many lives as you can, you need to address your organization. How do you do it in a way that if it were your sons and daughters you were addressing, you would do it with compassion and understanding? That is what we need in business. We need to change the language from firing, downsizing, and laying off to we need to make some adjustments in team members' lives. We did it with compassion and understanding so that they would land on their feet and we would get through this, because that is what changed my view in 08, 09. I said, we can't let people go even though our orders are down 30%, because we'll hurt the very people who put their trust in us. And the unintended consequence of that was profound respect for our business model that came from our team members. And remember, those people that virtually everybody agreed to take a month without pay, they did it with joy because they were helping their fellow team members. So when you care about the people, it causes you to explore every other option you can before you hurt those very people that place their trust in you. So just look at those people and say, I know it's tough, but let me tell you how we're going to get through it. In our worst of times, remember, they repossessed my coffee maker in our offices. We didn't have coffee because we hadn't paid our coffee supplier in 6 months. Never got me down. In the worst of times, you have got to be a spirit of hope with your feet on the ground and your head in the clouds. We're going to get through this together, and here's how we're going to do it. That is the role of a leader, to give those people hope that we can get through this together, okay? That is your job. Nobody said it was easy when they gave you that role, okay? Being a parent is not easy. Being a spouse is not easy. Being a citizen, but it is incredibly gratifying when you look at those people and say, we got through this together. It will be an immensely rewarding experience for you. Everybody experiences difficult times. Our business model is incredibly robust. So I hope that helps you.
Thank you, Bob. I think I got a lot of insights in that. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I tag Harsh.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashish. Hi, Bob. So, Bob, we're in the middle of evaluating a merger, and I take your feedback on how do you make an acquisition work when you're broke, right? So I'm working on making it work by inspiration and perspiration, because it's a sizable firm and we don't have the plans for it. But the company that we're acquiring,
Yeah.
Bob, they're not very people-centric. Whatever interactions we've had so far with their team, they're not very people-centric, and caring is a value that we very strongly live within our team. So as we go ahead with this acquisition and we culturally integrate both teams, I just wanted to get your advice on, what should we watch out for, or how should we approach something like that?
I've done 130 acquisitions, and I can say we only had one situation where the culture became a challenge, and it wasn't. And it was a situation in Los Angeles where they had a long battle with the unions. And when we acquired this company, we had every intent of continuing the operation, of giving them a good future. We brought the ideas of lean manufacturing in to train people. We're strong, and yet just from the history, the disease was so bad, they fought everything we did to try and give them a better future. And eventually the city came along and wanted to buy this large piece of property where our plant was located in Los Angeles. And we said, you know what, this is a cancer that we can't cure because we can't really deal directly with the people. We were forced to deal with the union, and the union relationships were so difficult. So, but I would say in 121 other acquisitions, from France to India to China to Serbia, what I do is when we adopt a company, I go in and tell them, welcome to the family. And we have a guiding principle of leadership, which is our constitution of our values. And we share that with them and say, welcome to the family. Together we can create a good future. And I would say to you, people say, well, it's one thing to build a culture, and when you kind of grew organically and you had the same team, we're a combination of 120 cultures around the world. And Raj Sisodia, my co-author, flew to many of our locations with me because he couldn't believe he would find the same culture everywhere. He did, from northern London to France to Italy to Germany, because universally around the world, people simply want to know they matter. So my goal, if I acquired a company, I adopted a company, I would focus on the people and say, we're privileged to have an opportunity to work with you. Here's what we believe in. Here's where we're going. We welcome you to join us in this journey. And then you've got to treat them with respect and dignity. And in 120 some acquisitions, I have never seen that fail, okay? We've had some failed leadership, okay? But the people are not the issue. People want to know they matter, and you have a chance. So if you acquire this company and you put on debt to do it, and you bet a lot, and then you have challenges, what message are you sending to the people? Okay, got to make the numbers, got to change. We bought you. So the question is, how do you welcome them into your family, show them that they have a good future, share where you're going, and then practice the principles of true human leadership? Because if you simply say, we care about people, that's a nice statement. It's just not transferable, okay?
Right.
Because we care about people so we immediately acquire that company, we adopt it, and we start teaching their leaders how to care. And then I say to people, welcome to the family. Now let's go together and do good things. And people cry, virtually cry. Because I remember this one team said that we adopted in the family. I never thought I was going to get to work for a company that cared about me. And they brought tears to their eyes.
All right. Thank you, Bob. I'll tag Mithun.
Thank you, Harsh. Bob, my question was quite similar to what Harsh just now said, but expanding it further. India is a big country, and we have a lot of people who work from far away places than where we are located, the head office is located. So how do we ensure that this we get early signs to understand that this guy is a bit disengaged, and how do we make sure that the care what we reflect for the people who are with us in the head office on a daily basis, that same culture, that same trust, that same things are transferred to those people who are staying far away from us?
Well, Barry-Wehmiller, we got 100 locations all around the world. We're probably more scattered, more so than even you. Culturally scattered, the nature of the people are scattered. And I spend a lot of my time as leader, as I should, giving people a sense of the future. Spreading the message. And today, more than ever, we have mediums like this that allow you to have dialogue with people all over the world. I mean, our listening session, before the COVID, I would go around the world and I'd stop in, Serbia and Belgrade at our operation there. And I would sit down with a group of team members and say, this is what we believe in. How are we doing? And I would have interaction with them, with the leaders, with the team members. COVID hits and, we can't do that. But what we realize is with the medium that you're using right now, we can actually do that around the world. So you're not just talking to people in Belgrade, Serbia, but we can have people in China on the same call with people in Wisconsin, and we can start weaving together this global. And so I now have listening sessions. I had one yesterday, and we had people in China. We had Shanghai to Hamburg to Wisconsin. And it's beautiful because you can see, remember, 80% of communication is nonverbal, visual. So if we were on a conference call right now, this learning session would be dramatically different than when I can see your faces. You can see mine, we can feel more of the passion and thought. And so I'd say to you, you got to start with what is your constitution of your values that you want to live by? How do you share those and live by them? Okay, with your words and your actions. And it doesn't matter how diversified or spread out you are, because we have tools today that give you an opportunity. And I learned more. I want to stress this. I learned more because when we created the guiding principle of leadership, which Jyoti's seen, and you're welcome to see it's on the internet, which is our constitution of values of leadership. It was about the time of the Enron scandal in the United States. And our chief people officer said, Enron had good values on the wall. They just didn't live by them. I said, okay, Rhonda, I'm not going to put them on the wall. I'm going to put them in people's heads and hearts. And I started flying around the world as I visit operations, having listening sessions with our team members, sharing our values and asking them how we're living to them. And it was astounding what they told me, astounding. It dramatically enhanced our future because I'll give you an example. One gentleman said, when I'm away, I'll go out to install a machine, and in this case, in Puerto Rico, and you trust me to embrace this challenge, go and install this machine. I walk back in the plant after being 2 weeks in Puerto Rico, and I got a punch a time card. I'm told what to do. So you trust me when I'm in Puerto Rico, but you don't trust me in the plant. And I said, never occurred to me. We changed everything. We treated them with respect and dignity. But some of these things, by listening, we learned so much when we asked our people, are we living these values? And they told us that around the world. So again, listening sessions are a key thing we do. Now we do them both in person. I'll have 2 next week, one in Akron, Ohio, one in South Carolina. And we will ask people, how are we living the values? And a lot of times it's new team members, and we'll ask them to share their experiences. So we have this constant dialogue about culture, and people know it matters to me, okay? And that means a lot to people, because if all you talk about is numbers, how can you say, but we're a caring company? The way you behave has a greater impact on the people you lead than the words you say. Your behavior is the greatest cultural impact. And we have been tested in the worst economic condition in 2008-09, and we stood by it. So I would say to you, people spread out all over the place is, with today's communication skills and virtually no cost in doing it, is a tremendous way to engage people in a dialogue. Are we living the values? What can we do better? What do we do? What we do well, and what can we do better? And we have these calls, the cadence around the world. And I can actually reach more people now with today's tech, as I am you. I couldn't have interacted with you all if I had to fly to India and spend a week to go there and back. But I can spend an hour at dinner time tonight and touch your lives in ways I hope you become disciples of these values and with Joey's amazing coaching. Okay, that's my goal. But again, it doesn't matter how spread out you are. It matters how you use today's mediums and how genuine you are in asking people, how do we live our values and how can we be better?
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And I tag
12,000 people, 100 locations around the world. And Raj would tell you he experienced it everywhere he went.
Thank you, Bob. I tag Anju.
Yeah. So, but before we go, Bob, you've been talking for the last 1.5 hours, and I'm wondering if we'll take a 5-minute break to give you voice rest and give a bio break to everybody. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think any one of you can take your break by just putting mute for a second, and I'm actually on a roll right now, so I don't need it, but if you do, I'll respect that.
Okay, so we have 6:55. So anybody needs to take a bio break can take a bio break now. Meanwhile, we can, I guess we can just stand up and shake a bit, and we've been sitting for a while, so can we all stand up, shake up a bit, and then maybe sit down again? And those who want to take a bio break can take a bio break or a water break, and we can come back.
Ralphie. Yeah.
It's 5:30 a.m. when folks here in India started, Bob. So they need some stretching.
They have breakfast. See, here's my coach. Here's my leadership coach with me. Say hi, Alfie. These are wonderful people from India. You may never get to see him again. He's my coach. He's my little inspiration. It's Alfie.
He's very cute.
A Bernie Doodle, a miniature Bernie Doodle.
How sweet.
He's sitting at my feet. Man's friend, man's best friend, right?
Yes, absolutely. How's your wife, Bob? How's she doing?
She's good. She's upstairs. I'm at our cattle ranch in the mountains of Colorado. We just moved from Florida back here for the season, so we'll be here till October. So we're in paradise right now.
Awesome. Seeing your dog, my dog has started barking in the background.
I'm amazed that your dog is so well behaved.
Talk.
I'm amazed your dog is so well behaved. He is so quietly.
He is. I didn't know you could love a pet as much as we love him. He has been an unbelievable joy. When my wife usually gets up a little earlier than I do, and Alfie sleeps. He's 25 pounds and he's very soft. And when she gets out, he will come up and put his head on the pillow next to me and go back to sleep. So it's his love for the two of us is ridiculous.
Yeah. I guess, dogs, I think probably dogs know by default what unconditional love is, right? Role models for that.
Yeah, right. If everybody in greeting each other would wag their tail and smile like my puppy does, the world would be a better place.
I would agree. I think dogs would make much better leaders, don't you think?
I think, as I look down here, he's just laying at my feet, saying, "Come on, Dad, when are you going to get done so you can come up and play with me?"
Brilliant. Cool. So 6:58, and we had Anju coming in next. Anju?
Yes, I'm here.
You are here. All right. So let me put you on.
Hi, Bob. I'm already getting a lot of insights. So thank you for that.
Good.
And I completely resonate with this idea of human leadership. I have worked as a teacher for many years, and working with children, it automatically brings about love and care and all that. So my question is, if I'm leading as a coach, right now I'm working as a coach and I'm working with people, how would I measure my own success as a leader?
I'm going to answer that question. I'm going to go back one step because you said you work in education. One of the things I realized, because we now have a leadership institute with 40 people helping people like American Airlines and Shell Oil Company, major companies learn to care about their people. So we have 40 people dedicated full-time now doing that. But a few years ago, I said to myself, having been on this journey about 17 years, why do we have to fix adults? Why do we have to do this? Why is there a need for this? And I realized that our education system is the cause. So I realized we were treating cancer of lack of care, but we weren't curing cancer. And so we are now working with primary education in this country that basically teaches academic skills so you can get a good job and make money. And I will actually next week on Thursday be teaching a seniors in high school class at a school that has decided to embrace our principles and try and bring in age appropriate ways from kindergarten, from 5 years old to 18 years old. How do we teach not only arithmetic and math and science and history and English, but we also teach caring and listening. And the entire school has decided to model this so we can roll this out in the United States. So we are funding while we are trying to treat cancer over here, like you would with coaching, why do we have to fix these adults? Okay. Because our education system gave us professional skills, but it didn't give us human skills. Okay. Because our education is around getting a good job and making money because we thought economic prosperity was the solving world's problems. But now that we have economic prosperity, we realize we don't have human prosperity. So I think from my standpoint, from yours, I would say to you, because a lady that I was talking to yesterday from a university said, give me an example of how you're impacted by this journey. And I told her the story of this, but I told you earlier, this gentleman. Can you imagine how I felt when this gentleman wanted me to know that our leadership, not me, our leadership had saved his marriage and reduced the chance his child would be prone to suicide? How do you measure that, okay, in terms of your career? Because stories go to your heart, okay? And so if you had heard what I have heard in my journey of how our leadership models impacted people's marriage, their relationship with their mother, their healing of their brother, their behavior, your heart would be so full, it would be pounding right now. Because I always say, how do you measure love? Okay, how do you measure love? You can't. You can feel it, but you can't measure it. How do you measure success? You can feel it, but you can't. It's not by the amount of money or your position or your power. It's the lives you've touched. And as a coach, you have a chance to give people a chance to be who they're intended to be, not just for themselves, but for the lives that they will touch in their journey. So you have a unique opportunity, as Jyoti does, to touch people's lives, to improve their marriage, and hopefully improve the way they raise the children that they have the privilege of being part of their life. So that would be my answer to your question. The stories that people tell you as a result of the work you do will be the greatest measure of success you can imagine. Not by the rate they pay you or the demand, but the stories they tell you.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I'm going to tag Vimla.
Thank you, Anju. Bob, in the book, you mentioned how you turned around the company. And I think around 2002, then you all sat down and said what has been working for us, and then created the model and your leadership school and so on. My question to you is, you talked about people performance purpose or people purpose performance. How do you explain the order in which you put this? You very clearly say it's people first, and you talk about your people and not your company. But to use your analogy of the car, unless you have the car and you know where you're going, then you put the fuel in it. So how do you explain the order in which you talk about these three things?
Well, it's really a little bit the chicken and the egg. Do you need a good business strategy or you need a good culture first? I would say you need both, okay? So the way I talk about it is that, again, our job as leaders, our role as leaders is to give those people in our care a grounded sense of hope for a future, okay? in my worst of days, when we were virtually 1 inch away from bankruptcy for several years, and every day we came in, we didn't know if we were going to make it. I never lost hope. I never gave people a sense I lost hope. So as leaders, as we're dealing with, the imperfections of our business model sometimes, and the imperfection of our leadership skills, we need compassion and understanding, but we need to constantly see a way forward that people say, I believe in you, okay? I know there's nothing easy about that. Whether you're president of the United States dealing with the global issues we deal with, or president of a company or head of a department, how do you give those people in your care a grounded sense of hope for the future, and then send them home each night knowing that who they are and what they do matters? And so I would say to you, you got to have a good business model, because if you run a part of a company that is, so your role is good, whether you run production or finance or marketing, but if the business model is not well designed and tested, you're at risk of putting your family in that car and being in an accident and getting hurt. So I would say to you, it's both. It's not one or the other, it's both, okay? It's not giving up profits for caring for people. It is people and performance and harmony. And so it's very important, in my view, that that you keep this focus, okay? And they will evolve together, right? They will evolve together, but it's both. It is honestly both, and that's very important.
Okay, so there's not necessarily an order. It's all three which are important. Or
No.
to be a triangle.
No. Nope. I'd even say to you, if you have kids, is your husband more important or your kids more important? Whoops. Both.
Both. So it's all three. Yeah.
You don't need to divide them up. You don't need to. Yeah, right. It's
got it.
He said to me one time after a speech like this, boy, that seems really hard. And I said to him, name anything in life that's worthwhile that's easy. Is it easy to have a marriage of equal value and harmony? No. Bringing two lives together and having a harmonious marriage is always a challenge. Is raising kids easy? No. Having raised 6 kids, there's nothing easy about raising kids. Being a leader of a team is not easy. It may pay better than some of the business, but you got to have all the skills to be a spouse, to be a parent, to be a citizen. And it calls us to be our best selves, okay? It calls us to take our greatest attributes. But, one of the things I would say to you that I experience in life, so many people live life reacting to events. This happened, we dealt with it. This happened, we dealt with it. They don't live life, they don't see life as a journey. They see life as COVID or economic downturn, rising interest rates, or decline in market share. And in my opinion, as a leader, you got to look out beyond the current issues to where you're going. So when you deal with the issues that we all have in our daily lives and our daily businesses, we deal with them in the context of where we're going, not just dealing with the issue. So I would say to you, people and performance and harmony. It's not one over the other, it is both. Nothing says it's easy, but that's what we are called to be as leaders, because people count on us. They put their trust in us, and we need to validate that trust as best we can.
Thank you, Bob. And I tag Vignesh.
Thank you, Vimla. Hi, Bob. It's indeed a pleasure, listening to you. This is the second time I'm attending the session. Thank you, Jyoti, for helping me. So
you're an advanced student, okay? So you're an advanced student, okay? The second time means that you've already dramatically improved, and now you're trying to take it to the next level up, right?
Of course, yes. That's where I would like to start. So last time I had one good takeaway, and I'm very fortunate to hear that yesterday morning from one of my leadership team member. So parenting and leadership are identical. So that was my biggest learning from the last session. And I feel I have implemented in the organization already, because I heard it not from me, but one of my leadership team member was talking to the fellow mates, and he used the same word and said, Vignesh usually says this. So in today's session, I recall the same, and I continue to go by the same. And we are a people first culture today in the organization, and everybody in the team celebrates the culture. Even we do not have a marketing team. The tech team who celebrates by creating videos about the culture that we have, and that's how the company is right now. And I'm so glad that we are in the type of culture. My question to you is, Bob, how would I strategize my hiring in a way that people who come in new are adaptive to the culture? Because I can find right talent, but how could I evaluate whether they could adapt to the existing culture? Because people come from different organizations. So what's your input?
Well, twofold. First of all, one of the things that we strive to do is, because there's so much on the media and YouTube, on the internet about our message, that we try to engage people in the course of the dialogue to explore the opportunity with them, talking about culture, talking about their questions about the culture. So not just about your professional skills, your experience, but how, your thoughts on the culture that we've articulated with you. So trying to see to what extent we can evaluate that. The second thing that we do at various levels of impact is we have a series of case studies we ask them to study and to see how they would deal with it. And rather than just an interview dialogue, we have them take a particular situation and ask them how they would deal with it. And it's amazing what that reveals, okay? Because somebody will come across academically and experience-wise very prepared, but then they're given a situation to tell us how they would deal with it. And it really sorts out other characteristics that are important to us. And finally, we just merged with a team called Leadership Alliance, who has the ability to test for leadership skills or adaptability. It's called Leadership Alliance. So it's about a $5 million a year consulting team of about 20 people. So they joined us. So our goal is, how do you see, I said to you that this gentleman told me that his 4-year-old son tested as prone to possibly having characteristics for suicide, and and they were able to test for it. So what we're looking to do by bringing this together is, how do we do a better job of inviting people into the organization so they come in with what we call fresh eyes and fresh spirit and actually enrich our culture, because and the other thing I do is I constantly am interviewing people who just joined us. What was the culture you came from like? Rarely does anybody ever say I came from a really good culture. Okay, rarely. It's amazing what people tell me, the brutality that they have experienced in the way the culture they came from, the way they were let go, the inhuman way. So we are constantly trying to improve the way we invite people into the organization and then steward them when they get in the organization. Because one of the greatest stories that Harvard has is somebody that was part of an organization that had a military background, was very, just leave me alone and let me do my thing. He now is a professor in our university teaching leadership. And the Harvard people were blown away by the transformation. So we believe there's goodness in people. It's a matter of finding it. On the other hand, we would like to think our recruiting practice helps us find the right fit of the right talent and the right human skills to actually positively contribute to our organization. So it's not a perfect science any more than picking the person you're going to marry, which is an imperfect science, but we're constantly striving to improve the ability to see the blend of talent and skills to enrich our culture. So I would say to you that hiring can actually enrich your culture because people will see what you have and they'll actually tell people, you don't even know what you had. So when people hear what people came from, they actually appreciate it even more. So that's the answer I'd give you on that. Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much. Meet you next time in a super advanced level. So I would tag Gaurav.
Thanks, Vignesh. Thank you so much, Bob, for all your inspiring stories and all the sharing. My question is that I'm actually working, I'm not the business owner, but working as a leading a team in India for India operations. Question is that if business owner is more, profit oriented or the bottom line oriented, and my philosophy is more towards the people oriented, how to manage in such kind of scenario, because it's been now long number of years and gradually it's happening now that owner is becoming more and more profit oriented. I am becoming more and more people oriented. So how to manage this gap?
Well, I'll tell you, when the chairman of American Airlines with 130,000 people, so he was chairman and CEO of American Airlines. And when he heard this talk you've heard, he said to me, much like you're saying, how do I handle my board of directors, which are his owners? Okay. They represent his owners. So he had the same struggle, even though he was chairman and CEO of American Airlines. And I said, very carefully, because your board is not going to understand this. The owner that you have who is profit oriented, that is probably 99% of the owners, okay? And the CEOs, even if they're not owners, because that is the game of business. It is not about human thriving, it is about economic thriving, okay? That is just the game that's defined in business. So your owner's probably not a bad person, okay? But the game, when he talks to his friends, it's the growth, the profitability, the wealth it creates. So what you've got to do is you got to be very perceptive, okay? Just like I told the chairman of American Airlines, you got to think, how can I embrace this in a way that the people that you have the privilege of leading will have a sense of safety and security in your care. And to some extent, you take that owner on a journey and you share stories with them over time that will open his heart to the human side of business. Because right now the dialogue is about profits with his bankers, his other investors, whatever. And so you're playing his game, okay? The game of business, because that's 99% of people. What you've got to do is you got to rethink how you are a leader that your people put their faith in, making sure you have a good business model that's going to create value, which is what your owner wants. But then you start sharing with them in thoughtful, appropriate ways, stories, as I do with my board, okay, that will open their heart in time, because it's not a black and white switch. It's not a switch you do. You've got to appeal, and you've got to be perceptive of him and his personality, or him or her. And you've got to then feed them over time. And you've got to, in effect, bring the owner along while you give the people in your care a future. So it's a tough job, but nobody said it was going to be easy when they promoted you and paid you all that money, okay? It is not an easy job, but you've got to bring the owner along in thoughtful ways while you make sure that you're running the business that is creating value. Otherwise, the owner will come down on you, okay? And you won't have a chance to lead these people. So it's a delicate balance to transform, but it was a delicate balance for the chairman of American Airlines, okay, who built the world's biggest airline, because he thought his job was to do that. He never thought about the 130,000 people. He's an incredible, loving, caring guy, but he played the game of business, which is about profits and cash and growth and personal wealth. So you've got to embrace these in ways and bring it along, and be careful how you communicate. To this day, my board, they're much more comfortable talking about our growth, our profitability, our margin, our financial leverage than they are culture. It goes pretty quiet because it's a language they were never taught. It's like me starting to speak Chinese at a board meeting, and they say, I don't really know what he's talking about, but they don't want to know. So nobody debates it with me because our numbers are so dramatic. But I would not say to you it is a language that owners, executives know how to talk about. So you're going to be a pioneer, but look at those people you have a privilege of leading and treat them like you would like your son or daughter treated, or anybody that you care about, and find ways to bring the owner along, because it's a foreign language to that person because of his experience. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I take Vikash.
Thank you.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to listen to you, and it has been quite insightful. So my question is, we are a real caring organization, and we work very on specific people to people, how we can develop them, how we can nurture them. But suppose even after a lot of effort and care, if the person is not able to perform, what do we do? Do we, in such a situation, do we still continue with the situation, or how do we do that? Because otherwise we are not building a performance culture. So we are doing everything to bring that person.
Well, okay, don't say you're not building a performance culture, because you're saying all it cares is numbers. Numbers aren't right. We have to take it on the people, because maybe the business model is the problem, not the people. Okay, so I would say to you, and again, the most common question I ever get around the world is, what do you do about the people that don't get it that we need to address? I say we're a vibrant culture, not a performance, where people have a chance to be who they're intended to be and create value together, playing as a winning team. So if you have somebody that we put in a position that didn't work out, we put them into that position, where it didn't work out. We've done everything we can do in a positive way to try and coach them to address the issues while making sure we point out the things they do well. Remember, when you're raising kids, you need to compliment them 5 times more than you suggest things they could do better, or it's very difficult for them to deal with it. There's no difference in adults. So making sure that this person you're working with, you spend as much time on what they do well so they can hear the things they do better. But if at the end of the day, you determine that you're going to be unable to align their behavior to your culture, then the question is, if that was your son or daughter, mother or father, how would you deal that in a way that they learn from that, feel valued, and move on and have a chance to grow into a better person? So that's what you owe that person. Not, you haven't performed, so you're fired. Your last day is this Friday. Clean out your desk. I'm going to walk you to the door. The inhuman way people are let go in organizations is horrible. So what you want somebody to do is shake your hand and say, I don't like the outcome, but I appreciate the way you handled it. I learned from it. I'm going to try and be better. That would melt your heart if they said that, and that should be your standard of care.
So does it mean that the company should have zero fire policy?
Should have what?
So does it mean that an organization should not be asking a person to leave under any circumstances?
No, no. We find that people are not a good fit periodically. I think our plant outside Denver, we just had a leader that we became aware of some really difficult issues, and we sat down with him and very respectful and say, we're going to have to make a change because we became aware of the situation. It's unfortunate because you've got a lot of good qualities, but unfortunately these issues have forced us, and we addressed it, I think, in a human, caring way. So I would say to you, we are always dealing with issues because if we don't address this, we're going to hurt other team members. So again, if you allow somebody else to perform below responsible expectations for the position you put them in, and you've done everything you can do to help them, then you need to address it, or you're hurting the other people when you do not address it, okay? And so again, think of the unintended consequences. Have you tried to work with this individual and make sure that you've aligned his skills to the role? And if not, and there's no other opportunity for that person to adjust, and then sitting down with them with a caring way and pointing out the good things they've done, pointing out the things that they need to work on, but that we need to make a transition. And so that when they go home, there is not any more humiliated or broken than possible. So they go home with a sense of dignity. And I've heard some amazing feedback when people are treated with respect when they don't work out, because you help them address the issues, and maybe in the next role have the chance to address those. Because there's got to be consequences. When we're raising kids, one of the things we learn is there's got to be consequences. They only learn when there's consequences. We cannot protect kids from consequences. We cannot protect our people that work for us from consequences of behavior.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I will tag Snehal.
Thanks, Bitash, and thank you, Bob. It's a wonderful insight you have made. A question I have is, our business model is that we work through channel partners, and I lead the service part, so my work is through the channel partners. So for me, the team is my channel partners team. So and these channel partners are entrepreneurs in themselves, so they have their own values and purpose. And while dealing with them, my CEO also keeps on telling me that be like a mother and treat them as your kids. That's the simplest way to work with them. But many a times I see.
Snail, I just wanted to pause there. Bob, her CEO says that because he attended your last session.
Well, and again, and I don't mean when some people take a negative when we say treat them like family. Family is just people you profoundly care for and you want the best for. That's what I mean. I don't mean tell them what to do or punish them, I mean, when we say, again, the biggest feedback we get from people around the world is I feel like I'm part of a family that cares about me. Because the word family in English means the place of ultimate care and loving. So when people say I'm part of a family, so when we say don't treat them like a mother, treat them like that you care about them is the word I would use, that you genuinely care about them. And any dialogue you have comes from a foundation of caring, and listening is the greatest skill you could have in your role. So what can I do to help you be a better caring team leader?
So even our vision is to, like, we also say that, means we don't say them as when channel partners, we say them like we are a family. But still I get the resistance from many of them. I feel that we are not aligning on what are our expectations or what are our values of the purpose. So how to handle this?
Well, we are fortunate. So some of you have said we have a nice environment. My concern would be, do you have a particular leader who happens to be a genuinely nice person in a good business and his personality is good? And then I've seen many companies where that person then retires, sells the company, moves on to another job, and somebody else comes in and there's no foundation of caring. It was just that individual. So I would say to you that the skill you need is to really, how do I become a leader and how do I treat people that I have the privilege to interact with, that they matter. And the greatest skill you can have in your role, seriously, is to be the greatest listener that anybody's ever met. And that is the most powerful skill I've ever seen. I've seen it dramatically change, because it's amazing when people feel that you listen to them. In your role, working with these channel partners, whatever, you need to be a great listener, okay? because people will tell you things if they feel that you're listening. It will help you do a better job. And the other thing I would say to you, without a constitution of your values, it's hard to live values because there's no constitution. You know, what does caring mean? I know my interpretation of caring is different than your interpretation. So we were fortunate in the early days to create the guiding principles of leadership that articulate our values and allows us to live by those values. And therefore it's not, well, gee, I had a nice person and he does these things. So we have a constitution of our values, our guiding principles of leadership that guide us. And then again, in your role, being a phenomenal listener that asks the right questions will give you a chance to really impact these people that you're working with. You're not their mother, okay? You're somebody who genuinely listens to them and helps them make. Again, if as a parent, if you tell your kids what to do, you're depriving them of growth. As a leader, if you have to tell your team members what to do, you are depriving them of their growth. So your goal is to be a listener and ask questions that lead them to the right decision that they own. You are a facilitator of good listening and decision-making in your role, I would think.
Oh.
Not the mother.
Yeah, understood.
On the mother who's beating up the children.
Yeah, right.
Thanks. That's a wonderful insight. And I'll tag Aditi.
Thanks, Nehal. And thanks, Bob, for such a wonderful session. I feel so privileged to be part of this forum again. So my question is, just to give you a little bit context, like we recently got into a situation where we work in a client. We are an IT consulting organization, and we work in a client vendor operating model. So we recently got into a situation where the client was not willing to go ahead with one of our team member, and they wanted to replace him. Though as an organization, Sapien do value people and give them a lot of support, when it comes to people. But from the client perspective, they still, didn't want to go ahead with the gentleman and wanted to replace him. So I want to understand how to handle such conversations with the clients, even though we do believe in, giving people enough and good opportunities. Yeah, that's
Well,
what
I think, first of all, this individual that you value, the key is to make sure that that is the primary, that you as an organization value this individual. That doesn't mean that in every client interaction that there's going to be a good match of that person's personality or skill sets and the client's. And if you reach a point where the client is determined that this particular individual is not going to meet their needs, okay, for whatever that reason is, professional, technical, et cetera, then your role is to understand, to listen to why, not change their mind, but to really listen, and then to address the issue in a compassionate way that says, look, I understand your perspective. I've listened. I understand. I'm not debating it. I understand it. And we will address this, this point of conflict, because we don't want our team member, this individual, working in an environment where he's not valued either. Okay, so you owe it to your team member it can't be gratifying for that person to be working where they have this conflict with the client. Okay, it can't be. And so when you have a mismatch of skills, personality, situation, you want to get your people out of harm's way. Okay. And so I would say to you, I would not approach it like this individual failed, okay, because you said we value that person. Yeah. I would say, look, we don't want you in harm's way. We want you in places where you're valued. You've had many engagements where you have been. We're going to find that opportunity, and let's move on. So they don't feel they have let you down or the firm down. And you say, client, look, I respect your decision, and we have a high regard for this individual, but we are going to make a change because we know the value of this relationship is that human side, and we want to find that right mesh. So I'm not saying who's right or wrong, because again, the client's voice, you certainly can't force, you shouldn't force, because it can't be good for your team member to be in an environment where they're not respected. So for caring for that team member, you need to get them out of harm's way.
Got it. Yeah, sure, definitely. Thanks for sharing that, Bob. Yeah. And I will pass it back to Jyoti. I think we are done with everyone else.
Yes, Bob. So, I've pulled out your values, your guiding principles of leadership, and I'm going to share that with the group and tell me if I got the right one.
Well, if it's called our guiding principles of leadership and it says we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people, you nailed it. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
And we eclectically, but that is our constitution of leadership. That is it.
So I'm going to read it aloud for the group. So we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. A clear and compelling vision embodied within a sustainable business model which fosters personal growth. Leadership creates a dynamic environment that is based on trust, brings out and celebrates the best in each individual, allows for teams and individuals to have a meaningful role, inspires a sense of pride, challenges individuals and teams, liberates everyone to realize true success. Positive, insightful communication that empowers individuals and teams along the journey. Measurables allow individuals and teams to relay their contribution to the realization of the vision. Treat people superbly and compensate them fairly. Leaders are called to be visionaries, coaches, mentors, teachers, and students. As your sphere of influence grows, so grows your responsibility for stewardship of the guiding principles. We are committed to our employees' growth, and there are a lot of signatures there. How wonderful.
That document has been invaluable in the last 15 years, because we always go back to the constitution of our culture and try to be true to that. It has inspired unbelievable difference in thinking since we created that document. So thank you for sharing that, Jyoti.
Brilliant. So now we come to the last part of our conversation, which is reflection. And so let's go around the room and answer 3 questions, so that you maximize and concretize your own learnings. And what I would also invite all of you to do is, after the session is over, do session review and reflection and share it, with me, so that I can, and with the whole Circle of Love, so that we can share that back with Bob for him to know the impact that he has made. So let's begin with whoever is ready to share their reflection from today's conversation. Share, what are you feeling after this conversation? And the second question is, what insights you had, what learnings you had that made a difference to you? And the third question is, what actions will you take that will create breakthrough results for you, personally and professionally? So who'd like to begin? And then you can then tag next the person from whom you'd like to hear from next.
Jyoti, I can go first.
Yes, Ashish.
So thank you, Bob, for once again sharing. I'm feeling very inspired and itching to take actions right away. Some of the greatest learnings and the reiteration of what I've learned earlier. Everyone is someone's most precious child. I think if that's the thought each leader in our organization can carry, rest everything will fall in place. That's one of the biggest learning, and listening to understand as a tool of leadership, I think is something that I'm going to institute. One big action that I'm going to take is to take my leadership team, my direct supportees, through this talk of yours, and we are good to have this recording, take them through and inculcate this culture of care along the organization. Another thing that I will do is relook at the business model in the current economic situation that the country and the company is in, and make our business model more robust, so that we have a sustenance for the longer period of time. And within that, we are able to take care of all the individuals who work with us or the customers who have their trust in us. So that's my action plan, and I tag Ankit.
So before we go to Ankit, Ashish, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling very inspired. That's why I say I'm very inspired and itching to take action.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you, Ashish. Ankit.
Thank you, Ashish. Feeling very calm and positive and clear. I think a lot of what I heard really reassured me that even if how I want to run the company and grow it may be very different to my peers or colleagues in other companies, it might be the right way. And there is evidence now in this massive company of $3 billion that it is successful. And there's almost a validation that what my heart says may be the right thing or right way to do it. I think some of the basic things really resonated, that people want to know that they matter at the core of it. It doesn't matter what position they're in within the organization. Even the person on the shop floor wants to know that they matter and make them feel that they matter. I think the part that I also have to reflect on is, even if you decide to let go of someone, how to do it with dignity and probably even help them get outplaced into somewhere where they could be more successful. That's something that we are in the process of letting a few people go, and that's an important reflection for me. It's very, very helpful.
Let me give you let me give you a small feedback there. You referred to even the people on the shop floor. Okay. I want you to think about that statement. First of all, why would we call them on the shop floor? We don't say they're on the office floor. Okay. It's like they're a lower class people that you will even think about them, because everybody in that plant, from the person in the shipping department, the weighing machine tool, is somebody's precious child. And some of my greatest learnings have been from those people who simply want to know their life matters. So as we think about people, we don't think about the hierarchy. We think about everybody matters, which is the name of the book. So think about even your own language, and don't refer to people as being on the shop floor. Even the people on the shop floor, it's kind of like, we're even going to talk to those people that are not very smart that are working in the plant. Okay. So again, trying to change your language, which will affect the behavior and the inspiration of people. So just a feedback.
Absolutely. Fully agree, completely agree. Thank you for that. So I'd like to tag Bala.
I'm feeling very warm and cared for. I think the conversation gave me multiple insights, which I can take back to my work. One, if I had to call out one insight, I think culture as a competitive advantage is something I had not really thought of before. And I can see how it applies to business, including the business that I do. And then the other thing, at a personal level, I think, just hearing your story taught me that I guess leaders have to be incredibly emotionally strong and resilient. I kind of underweighted that. Generally, leaders are inspiring and mercurial and mavericks, and that's the image that one has of leaders. But hearing you, I found a different kind of almost spiritual leadership that kind of came through. And so it's triggered a new thought that I want to reflect on.
Yeah, tag someone.
I tag Aditi.
Thanks, Bala. I'm feeling deeply touched. Thanks, Bob, once again. And my learnings are like definitely practicing deep listening with the team. I think like I've seen like people dictating or telling teams like do this or do that. What I learned is definitely giving a deep listening is, and encouraging them to, asking them questions and encouraging them to, find out their own answers is something which is very critical to leadership. So yeah, that's something, that's my biggest learning. Another biggest learning I had is having a conversation with the team member. That's the action I'm going to take, and feeling him more, making him feel more supported in a way, to giving them support, like giving him support to get into to a situation or to a place where he's more valued. So that's the action that I'm going to take post this conversation. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And I tag Vikash.
Thanks, Aditi. So I'm feeling calm and excited at the same time. Calm in the sense that I have got answers to many important questions, and excited because it can have a very important impact on how I look at and deal with people. My key insight has been that we lose faith in relationship and caring people so easily, but how important it is to make it as a central piece of leadership. And by just changing that approach, how much difference you can make in our organization. So that's my key insight. And my key action would be to implement this this insight by deep listening to my team members and encouraging them to perform, and by living up to that standard myself. So that will be my action. And I will tag Snehal.
Thanks, Vikash. So Bob, I'm feeling inspired and empowered both ways, because this was, for me, it was really like a kind of eye-opening session, because the story which you mentioned in your book about what you realized when you attended your friend's daughter's wedding, that everyone is someone's precious child. And I'll reading that only, and today also you explained that in detail. So post that only I changed my working to while handling my call center team. That totally changed, because I used to like ask them about like what is the TAT and how many complaints you resolved, how many calls you did. But that one line changed my perspective altogether. And I very next day in my meeting, I changed my way of asking to them like what is your TAT and all that. I totally changed, because I know I understand they are putting their efforts, but still I was always asking about that numbers. So that was an eye opener for me. Second thing is, it really takes, I said, it really takes courage to care about people, because you will always care about your family, but someone outside your family, it really takes courage and skill also to care about that I need to, in my role, it is absolutely necessary, so that I'll try and do that. And third thing is listening. I was doing with my channel partners, but I was always thinking I was always listening from the complaints mode, that they are complaining to me. But now I will be doing active listening, because I know that, because they are coming to me because they feel that I can be someone who can resolve their issues. So I will be doing active listening now. So thank you.
You're there to resolve their issues. You're there to help them resolve their issues, because they need to own that, because when they own it, they grow. So when the kids come to you with problems, you don't want to tell them the answer. You want them to, well, what do you think you should do? And what do you think you should do? And it's the same way with adults. And because otherwise you're just there to solve people's problems, and people are not growing, and they don't feel valued, and they won't implement this. If they have the idea, they'll feel valued. So there's so many consequences that are positive when you listen and ask the right questions and help people make the right decision.
Yes, thank you. And I'll tag Anju.
Thank you, Sneha. Thank you, Bob, for such a wonderful session. I am feeling very encouraged and inspired. My learning, the biggest learning is that the way you behave has a larger impact on people than your actions. That's going to be my takeaway from today's conversation. And another learning is as a coach, as you said, that I have the opportunity to impact not the person in front of me, but also the families, their kids, and much more. So that's another insight and another learning I have. In terms of action, I am going to bring in and be more aware that to be a leader as I would want my kids to have, like I would want my kids to be led. That would be my action. And like many other people, it's going to be listen and listen more and listen more. That would be another action.
And recognize and look for the goodness in those people and spend more time catching them doing things right with appropriate, thoughtful gestures. And so that when you things they could do better, they can hear it. Because again, the expression is, I got 10 things right and I never heard a word. I got one thing wrong and I got my ass chewed out. Okay, so we should be just the opposite. We should spend more time looking for the goodness in people throughout the organization in thoughtful, timely ways. Let them know that we appreciate that in ways that they'll send them home feeling valued wherever they work in your company. It's not a hierarchical issue. It is. So those are beautiful comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to tag Vignesh.
Vignesh, I think, may have had some challenge. So tag somebody else. He's just calling me. I think he dropped out.
I'm going to tag Vimla.
Thank you, Anju. So Bob, I think, first I feel grateful and happy to be here because it was such a reinforcement of the book that I read. And my biggest learning today was that it's not important. I mean, I got the fact that people, purpose are all important together, but it's not important which order they are in, but that you never forget people. And I think just like as a parent, you always want to be a good parent and you always want to be a good steward of your kids. I think the same thing, that you never forget this guiding principle. And that's my learning. The second one was ask that question, how do you think you should do better? And bite my lip when I want to tell them what to do, how to do better. I think that's the biggest learning. And as a coach and as an organization leading coaches, I think getting people to constantly do that is going to be a very, very big one for me. And as an action point, I have kids who are grown up and who will probably be having kids of their own soon, is to look at your guiding principles of leadership and keep seeing how am I doing better as far as that is concerned and how they can imbibe the same thing. And I tag Ankit.
So let me add a comment on there.
Yes.
Because I've had in our listening classes a feedback. We had Simon Sinek's associate named Kim, who took our class, the 3-day class on deep empathetic listening. And at the end of the class, I was sitting there with this Bill Urey of Harvard and Simon. I said, Kim, what was the class like for you? And she said, well, Mr. Chapman, my mother and father are divorced. I talk to my mom almost every day because I'm very compassionate about her now being divorced. And I took this class and I realized that I talked to my mother every day, but I didn't listen to my mother. And she said, since I took this class, I now listen to my mother and my mother's life has improved dramatically. Okay, because I learned to listen to her and help her, and she made good decisions. And she said, I thought by talking to my mother, I was loving my mother. And it turns out by listening to my mother with deep listening skills, I was actually helping my mother, not hurting my mother. So even on a personal level at our homes, our jobs, listening is the greatest act of caring. But it is a skill. And it's not listening to what the words are. It's listening to what the intent is. Deep listening beyond the words. And I could tell you many stories about that. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. And I tag Ankit.
I've already gone. Jyoti on me.
I think Mufi.
Mufi, yeah.
I tag Mufi.
Thanks, Vimla. Bob, thank you so much for that. Hugely inspiring. It's a topic that's very close to my heart. People, I work in an organization that has a huge entrepreneurial spirit, but that also means that there is a very prevalent rockstar culture from time to time, and leading a team means driving the change towards more teamwork culture, the learnings from this chat have been hugely inspiring towards that. Many learnings, and some things like thank goodness it's Monday. I can totally resonate with that. I have that feeling every Sunday evening. But I think I think the one that really resonates with me the most is, why can't business be fun? We spend more time with some of our colleagues than we do with our family members, through the week. And if it's not fun being with them, then it's a waste of time. So that's something that I've been very closely sort of motivated and inspired to sort of create in the workplace, a fun and loving environment. Hugely inspiring to hear from you. And I think in terms of a key action, it has to be the listening piece, which I think I need to spend a little bit more time on committed listening. So once again, thank you for that, and I'll tag back to Jyoti.
Thanks.
Everybody done? Yeah, Harsh. Can you tag Harsh, Mufi?
Great. I'll tag Harsh. Sorry, Harsh.
Thanks, Mufi. Hi, Bob. Thanks so much for that. I feel positive, driven, wiser, very focused now. That's how I feel in the moment. A lot of learnings I've got. I'll share an A4 sheet size of review and reflection after the call. A lot of learnings across the board, and a lot of reinforcements from what I've learned from your book. So thanks for that. One key action that I'm going to take from now, based on the session, is I will take specific actions in my team to instill care further into the organization, expose more of my team leaders to your talks, your discussions, Simon's, some of Simon's thoughts. So those are, some of the actions that I'm going to take to actually live whatever we've learned, right? Super inspired. Thanks again so much. I tag Mithun.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob, for this very insightful and wonderful session. My feeling is I'm highly inspired and encouraged. And my learning is to have a human leadership role where it's important to listen more, to celebrate the success of the team with I'm working, and to make sure they understand how they matter for the organization. And the action which I will take is listening sessions with my people who are located far off from the office. And it's an active listening session. Change the language to make sure that we really appreciate the good things which they do more number of times, rather than criticizing them on the things which is not happening. Thank you. Thank
you. Bob, over to you to share how you are feeling after.
Sorry, Jyoti, actually, I didn't share yet.
Gaurav and
Vignesh.
I'm sorry. Yes, Mithun, go ahead and tag someone.
I tag Gaurav.
Thanks, Mithun. Thank you, Bob. Really, thanks a lot. I really feel very inspired, very positive. My key takeaway from this session is that it strengthened my self-belief to be a strong people-oriented person. It is the key to have a success. And I believe that this approach is going to help me further to even get my business owners also aligned to be more people-oriented. So my key action is that first is really to improve and to be a better listener. That is one key change I want to be in myself. Second is that just to share quickly, actually we have monthly meeting, and with my core team I started this practice to have at least sharing of one personal problem top of the mind, which is the personal problem of a month. So again, I listen, but no action to help in some way to, to help them to overcome that personal problem. Do some sharing, but at a very low level. But definitely I will be going now more and more deeper if I'm asking them about any personal issue, go more and more deeper and help them to overcome. So that is another action point that I would like to take. Thank you so much once again. Thank you.
Yeah, tag someone.
I think
Vignesh.
Vignesh.
I'm left.
Yeah, tag Vignesh.
Thank you, Gaurav. Bob, feeling so happy for the session, and I'm looking forward to inspire many people in my organization with all the thoughts that I've got. One biggest learning, I mean, it's hard to say one biggest learning from the session, but I'll try to keep it short, is to have a hiring strategy wherein I add a situation-based question in an interview to evaluate how far he can accommodate the company's culture. So that's the one biggest action and key takeaway that I have for today's session. And looking forward to meet you in the next session. And I love you, Bob. Thank you so much for your inputs.
Back to Bob to share with us how you are feeling after 2.5 hours. I called you a young man. Man, you're the youngest man in this group, youngest person in the group. You look just as energized at the beginning of the session. So late night. So
honestly, this is what, if you want a light bulb to go on, you plug the lamp into the socket and get electricity. If you want my heart to go alive, you plug me into people like you around the world. Because what I desperately desire is this blessing I've been given, this wisdom I think I've been given and blessed with through these revelations. I don't want it to die with me. And I need people like you around the world who embrace this so we can start healing the brokenness we're feeling so that we can live life fully and in service of others. So we move from a kind of a me-centric world to a we-centric world. So we all have a chance to live life fully, enjoy the joy of touching other people's lives through our work, through our personal lives, through our kids. So again, probably the greatest compliment I've ever been given was I was teaching Harvard divinity students in January. And the professor I was interacting with said to me on a side, he said, "Bob, you are a true prophet in the world." Now, honestly, at being an accountant, I didn't know quite what a prophet was. I'd heard the word, but I didn't know, and I looked it up, and it's somebody who speaks the word of God. And honestly, if those of you who've read the book, I don't know where these thoughts come from that have given me this message. It is now being embraced around the world through Harvard's teaching, through our book, through our TED Talks. But there's no question that what I've just shared with you is not Bob Chapman's thoughts. These are some higher power thoughts on the way we were intended to live and work together, where people genuinely feel cared for, share their gifts fully, and go home each night feeling cared for. And we could be dramatically heal the brokenness in every part of our society. But it's really all up to you. I can only be in so many places. So I hope each one of you have been touched, that will embrace this and help us create this healing world where everybody matters. So thank you for the privilege of interacting with you. And I am honored by the time that you have given me.
thank you, Bob. I don't even have words to express my gratitude for you. For all that you've done for me, and the listening that you've given me, and the time that you continue to give to my group. Deeply grateful. Thank you for being there. Thank you for your wisdom. And yes,
There's a great expression there's a great expression, Jyoti, I'll leave you all with: to whom much is given, much is expected.
Yes, I'll reach out to you, Bob, post this call to, like they say, after a party.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Thank you, Bob. I'll see you soon. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks,
Thank you.
Emily.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Bye, Joji.
Bye. Bye, Emily. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Yes.
All righty. Enjoy your day.
You too. Bye. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.